discuss a few things. I want to discuss the backing that I think the board should give David Moyes. I want to discuss David Moyes' perceived dithering in recruiting players, sort of along the framework of the fact that David Moyes seems to get more from the team than the sum of its parts. Now, I've been sort of racking my brain trying to look for a comparable club to West Ham, and I sort of struggle, really, largely because the clubs you would traditionally compare to West Ham now have a lot smaller stadiums. I was going to sort of compare us to Aston Villa, but we have 20-odd thousand more fans than Aston Villa now. It's likely we're going to go up to 66,000, and do you know what? I think we'll probably fill the stadium as well for a lot of those games. By the way, in yesterday's video I suggested Chelsea's stadium was about a third empty or something. As a lot of you have pointed out, they're still operating under licence. I actually thought the licence had been revoked because I saw the away fans in there and thought, well, hold on. The government are allowing Chelsea to sell tickets. That's not the case, so apologies for that. That being said, they still were very, very quiet, weren't they, the Chelsea fans? Anyway, let's not talk about Chelsea today particularly. But so when looking at a club to compare West Ham with, I'm sort of going to go for Newcastle, as I'm sure you'd expect me to. I'm going to get 52,000 fans in the stadium, big grounds. You would call them a club that's not achieved anywhere near their potential for a club of that size. So, and here's really my point. For Newcastle to get into in and around European places, I think they're going to have to spend a lot of money. They've already spent, quite a bit. They had a good old spend up in January, and I think they're going to have to do the same in the summer. It appears that Newcastle are going to have to throw high wages at players to get themselves up there, and I'm pretty sure they will. I'm pretty sure they're already in the top 10, aren't they? I'm pretty sure they'll be mixing it next season. But here's my point. Newcastle have to spend more than David Moyes did to get up there. And I just think that's a massive credit to our manager. Basically, I think he can get a group of lesser players to operate at the higher echelons than other clubs will. I'd say I was going to make the example of Aston Villa. Aston Villa have got to spend, and they're still not up there. There's lots of examples. I think we're very lucky with the manager we've got at the moment. And it's really the talk of Jesse Lingard that has sort of triggered my thinking on this, because we actually have to back David Moyes now. Now, there's a perceived idea that David Moyes doesn't provide the board with any transfer targets. Now, this is not for me to... I'm not trying to dig out the board here. This is about something going forward. Now, I do believe that David Moyes is slow. I do believe he takes his time. But also, that doesn't mean that he hasn't presented the board with a list of targets. What it means is he hasn't presented the board with a big list of targets. I'm going to name you a few players now. And we know for a fact that David Moyes has wanted these players. Now, the reason Jesse Lingard's here, Jesse Lingard obviously featured for Man United. Jesse Lingard had a few things to say, apparently, about the toxic atmosphere in the dressing room. The Man United manager had referred to Jesse Lingard in his press conference. So Jesse Lingard's in the news. Now, there's also a story doing the rounds that we are no longer interested in Jesse Lingard. I'm not sure I believe it. There's also another story doing the rounds that we're still in for Jesse Lingard. What do you believe? It doesn't matter. I'm not really talking about whether we will or whether we won't get him in the next window. But there's one thing that I do know for definite about Jesse Lingard, and that is that we were interested. David Moyes, for the past 2 years, has wanted to sign Jesse Lingard. So I think we can all agree that has David Moyes presented the board with a target in terms of Jesse Lingard? The answer's yes. I'll give you another name. Another name that we definitely know David Moyes wanted. Again, please forget whether he wants him now. Forget how he played for Sevilla. Did David Moyes want Sullivan En-Nesyri? The answer, unequivocally, is yes. David Moyes wanted Sullivan En-Nesyri. He's one of the 3 players that he's gone public on. Okay? So, did the board try and get him? Yes. Did the board get him? No. And I understand at the end of this, and by the time I finish talking, there will be comments under here saying, well, what do you expect, Gonzo? They'll say, we tried. I understand. But just hear me out, if you will, until the end, please. There's another one. James Tarkowski. Did David Moyes want James Tarkowski? Absolutely yes. Did we bid for him? Yes. bid 27 million. Apparently this is how the story goes. This is my understanding of the story. We bid 27 million. Excuse me. Burnley said, or Sean Dyche, whoever at the time, said we want 40. We came in with 28 or 29. And we were miles away. So, but did David Moyes highlight and say he wanted James Tarkowski? Yes. Did the board go and get him? No. Now, this I'm going to go some way here. Obviously, I'm going to prove my point with 3 or 4 other players. And by the end of it, I think you'll probably agree with me. I think, hold on a second. This is... yeah, we need the board need to do better on this. You possibly already agree with me before I've made my point. And before I do continue to make my point, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app, which you can download by clicking the link underneath. There's a little drop-down screen. Pop it open. You'll see a link in there. Click it, and it will take you straight away to a link on your device. You download the app to your phone. It's a football app. It's a Premier League football app. It's a FIFA football app, UEFA football app, international football, club football, all football. But you don't have to read everything. When you sign up, ask you your support. Say West Ham. Who's your national team? England. And what it will do is it will put all the news into one place for you and deliver it to your phone so you don't have to go searching for it. Use a QR code up there to download it. Best of all, this app is free. It's a really, really good source of information to keep up on your West Ham injury news, on your West Ham transfer gossip, results, upcoming fixtures, all the stuff. That's the OneFootball app. Right, now, excuse me, I'll give you another player. Whether it was realistic or whether it wasn't realistic, David Moyes, and we've had this confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, David Moyes highlighted Raphinha, said, I want Raphinha. We bid for Raphinha. Did we get him? No, we didn't. Now, you obviously know the last one I'm going to go for. Let's discount Calvin Phillips. Apparently there was an interest in Calvin Phillips, but we didn't actually bid for him, okay? But we did bid for Raphinha. Lastly and not leastly, I'll give you the example of Darwin Nunez. Darwin Nunez, I'm not convinced, but I'll forget that. It doesn't matter, I'm not convinced. David Moyes is. That's all that counts. David Moyes wanted him. Benfica actually gave a price, it might have been 65 million euros, maybe it's 65 million pounds sterling, whatever it was. Apparently we went in with 40 or 50 pound. 50 million pound, crikey. That probably is right. We went in 40 quid. Is that all right? We went in with 40 or 50 million pound. You needed the deal done. I think he was away with his national team at the time as well. Benfica gave a price. Apparently Benfica have already highlighted his replacement. They already know who they're going to sign as their striker when Darwin Nunez goes. There is a price for him. David Moyes said, this is my guy. It's no longer Tarkowski En-Nesyri. It's Darwin Nunez. This is the one I want. Did we go and get him? No. No, we didn't. Now, all of that, I guess, is academic now. Because you know what? We're still in the shout for a European place via the league. And we're in the semi-finals of the Europa League. And the Europos, Cupos as we like to call it on this channel. David Moyes has done remarkably well, given that he has a small squad. But I look at the small squad, I think that is all David Moyes' fault. Because I've just given you a list of targets there who, realistically, David Moyes has said to the board, I want him, can you go and get him? Actually, no, they couldn't. They couldn't go and get Lingard, they couldn't get Tarkowski, they couldn't get Raphinha, and they couldn't get Darwin Nunez. But he definitely said, I want those players. That doesn't mean they've got nobody. He clearly went and said, I want Jared Bowen, I want Kurt Zouma. Clearly there's an ability there. It's not like they haven't got anyone that David Moyes wanted. But here's my point. When we get to next season, they have to. They absolutely have to. I don't want to hear any more about David Moyes hasn't provided enough targets. You got your targets. Go and get them. This is what he said he wants. And I'm sure there'll be one or two others who are added to the list who David Moyes wants. That's ones we don't know about. Let's be fair. I'd heard nothing about Darwin Nunez at all before we bid for him. Nothing. I hadn't read loads of links saying, we're after this Benfica. I hadn't heard it. I hadn't even heard a whisper that we were interested in Raphinha. I just hadn't. There'll be someone else. David Moyes will have a couple of other targets. I think it's easy to think, David Moyes is going to stall and the board are going to wait for him to present them with a list of players. I reckon they already know. I reckon David Moyes already knows who he wants. Excuse me. David Moyes, a bit chesty today. David Moyes has already proven that with a lesser group of players, he can achieve really, really good things. And my point, and you've seen that against Chelsea. That was a ramshackle starting 11, really, but they almost got the job done. We got no defenders. We still kept the European champions at bay, and they were throwing on players like it was going out of fashion, right? I mean, a triple substitution. All right, they got through in the end, but us, we basically played two fullbacks and a centre back in our defence. That was it. We still managed to keep them at bay. And this is because David Moyes is highly organised. David Moyes can put these players together, and a lot of these players are not his players, by the way. So let's give him a chance. And do you know what? It's not even that bad for the board, and here's my point, here's my final point. We don't have to spend the money that Newcastle spend. For David Moyes to get a team that can compete at the top level, maybe not a league title, but can compete consistently at top 6 and get us European competition, they don't have to spend the money that Newcastle have to spend. I think David Moyes can do it just by upgrading 4 or 5 players. It ain't much to us. We know we're going to lose a lot. I don't need me to list them, who's leaving this summer. But those players get upgraded, David Moyes has got a chance. And he will keep us up there. Because the truth of the matter is, he's better than a lot of the managers around him. Maybe not the top ones, not your Klopp, your Guardiolas, people like that. No, okay, they are better. However, the next level down, I think he's as good as anyone. And anyone else battling with him, David Moyes has spent a lot more money than him. That's my perception anyway. I don't include Wolves in that, by the way, because a lot of these clubs, Wolves haven't had a European campaign. If Wolves were also in the semi-finals of Europe, and they were where they are in the league, I'd say, okay, you can compare him to David Moyes. You can't at the moment. Because what he's done, basically, is mount a challenge. Let's say 3 fronts. I think the FA Cup might be pushing it, but he's mounted a challenge on 3 fronts this season with a paper-thin squad. Give him a chance, back him, and do you know what? If you value a player at £50 million and actually the club wants 60, just pay it. Back him. Give him a chance. I'll tell you what, wait a long time for a manager like this. If we don't back him, we may well look in 5-10 years' time and regret the opportunity that was missed.